On today's episode of Perfiles by Don Page, I am honored and privileged to have Dunia Elvir. She is the president of NAHJ, National Association of Hispanic Journalists. And also, she is the primetime news anchor for Los Angeles Telemundo Noticias, the number one newscast in the nation right now. I want to thank you so much for your time. And also, I aim to inspire audiences with this interview. And I would like to learn a little bit about your trajectory and how did everything started for you in your career. Welcome, Dunia
Thank you for
Elvir.
having me. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My journey it's different than the typical journey of someone pursuing journalism because I didn't study journalism at the beginning. I only studied radio and broadcast. But simultaneously, I used to do a lot of housekeeping work. I used to clean houses. I used to clean the restrooms at the mall to make the money to pay for those classes that I had to take to work in radio. My intention was to be in radio, but one thing took me to the other thing, and I went from radio to TV actually in 1990 in Telemundo here in LA. And I was back then, we didn't have this technology that we have today. So that cameraman had an assistant, and that assistant had a third person pulling cables and stuff. And that was me, the third person pulling the cables, the boxes, the walkie-talkies, holding the reporters' purses, notebooks, even the cigarette, believe it or not. But we're talking about, 1990. Things changed dramatically since then. After that, I went to newsprint in Spanish, newspaper in Spanish. Then I went back to TV, also in the technical aspect, and in Channel 62. That was around 2000, 1999, 2000 approximately, when I started getting the bug of, hey, what if I can be a reporter? And that's where I started as a reporter on camera back in 1999, 2000 approximately.
Congratulations, you've come a long way. I mean, and it's so important for young reporters also who are starting this career or just graduating from college. You learned all the ropes, and to be the primetime news anchor of the number one newscast, regardless of language, in the nation. Correcto.
Yes.
That
Yeah, and
was
it's important
amazing.
what you mentioned, because if you did the job of the photographer, if eventually you're going to have some understanding and connection with your photographer. If you know the job of the person editing, the person running, and those times where tapes, now it's everything digital, the person running the whole show, you're going to have a special connection to, and you understand what they're going through on a daily basis, because it's very stressful. People get to see us on the air, but no one gets to see the massive village of people behind the scenes that are the ones making these shows actually possible. So it's very important to have that connection with your colleagues doing everything.
Well, you've been able to work at or maybe also develop your skills in different areas, and that is also very important to be versatile. And I am so happy that we're doing this in English because we can showcase that you are fluent in English. now, yeah, because I've always spoken Spanish to you, and I know you've been in the U.S. for a long time. And what is the most gratifying thing for you in your career? I know you've received various accolades in your home country, but also in DC. I mean, you're even in a museum. I mean, what does that mean to you? Are you daughter of an immigrant parents? Can you tell me a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, the immigrant was my grandmother. She came to United States in 1978 in a medical caravan. She was with a condition that they couldn't operate her in Honduras. So these American doctors signed all the letters. They actually found people to help her while she was here in the medical process. It's supposed to be 6 months only, but she fell in love, she got married, and she stayed and died here. And in 1988, she brought us. We flew back then. We used to have direct flights from my little town in La Ceiba, Honduras, to Houston. So I actually flew directly from, just imagine a little town where there's, back then we didn't have that many services. Actually, when I left the Ceiba, we didn't even have stoplights yet. I remember that. And I remember when I was probably 6 years old, when they put the first water faucet in the town to get water from an actual faucet and not from the well. So I get in this big mechanical bird to go to the United States, and just getting in that plane and just landing in Houston was a life transforming experience. You get to see
courageous too, courageous.
Crazy, yeah. You get to see things that you never seen in your life, that maybe you saw them on TV, like something that's, we give for granted a lot of stuff, something like a carpet, like having a facility, toilets inside the house. Those were things that we didn't have access to.
You didn't grow up with that.
No, we grew up poor. We grew up with a lot of limitations. I remember the first time we had a house with flooring, I was around 6, 7, because we used to have that compacted dirt. You compact it, you broom it, and it looks like a floor, but in reality, it's just dirt. We didn't have what the kids have here, of microwaves, refrigerators, none of that stuff. We didn't have a sink to wash the dishes. I used to wash the dishes outside in a big, we call it palangana, like big container, and you just put the water there, and we really grew up poor, really poor. And when I came to the States, my grandma used to live in Watts. For those people that know Watts, is this community next to Compton. It's a very vulnerable community. There's a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs. So her biggest fear was that we were going to get involved in those things. So I think she got tougher than what she was, just to make sure we didn't get lost in the journey of being here. Because technically I just did 11th and 12th grade in high school, and it was enough time for us to, get into the wrong things. Fortunately, we didn't. It was me and my 2 cousins that she brought, and the 3 of us actually graduated. I was the first one in my family with a degree, with a university degree, because my grandma finished 5th grade, my dad finished 3rd grade. That's as far as he got. And my mom finished, I believe, 7th grade. So I have a master's in business. So I was the first one that got a undergrad. And then I think I'm still the only one with a master's in my family. I haven't got competition in the family yet.
Me quita el sombrero, qué honor. I mean, you've been the first in many, many special accomplishments for your entire family, and also your legacy, your children. I guess you're a great example for your children of tenacity and also resilient. And I didn't know that your upbringing, but I guess this upbringing and your experience, your background, is relatable to audiences, and I think that's the secret weapon to you, that you've been able to connect with audiences. And now, thank you so much. This is so inspiring, and I am so happy that I even to talk about this, because it is muy aterrizada. You're super humble, but you're super successful too. Now, I would like for you to tell me if you've seen an evolution in the representation of Latinos in mainstream media and in Hollywood. I mean, you've been working in years for more than 2 decades. You also live in LA, the makeup, the entertainment industry. What have you seen, and what do you think needs to be done to have more representation of Latinos in mainstream media?
It'll be irrational to say that we don't need more representation. At the end of the day, we are growing at such a fast pace. To give you an idea, in California, we're 54% Latinos and Hispanics. So that means that we should have 54% representation in all of the industries, not only Hollywood, not only media, but everywhere. The reality is that we are growing. I do notice that presence of Latinos. We have Salma Hayek, we have Sofia Vergara, we have Eugenio Derbez, But these are names that are big right now, but let's not forget about those that came many, many years ago. Let's think about I Love Lucy. Sometimes I watch those old shows, and you see Desi Arnaz having segments, long segments in Spanish. So the fight started back then with him, with Rita Moreno, another big name, La misma Maria Felix, La Doña. She had a representation in Hollywood. I think sometimes we want things quick, and we are seeing things too slow for what we're looking for. The other question will be how many of us are getting ready and prepared to be in Hollywood in those roles and say, hey, I'm not going to take the gangster role. I'm not going to take the criminal role. We see John Leguizamo, for example. He said that I'm not going to be only this person. So what he decided to do? He decided to go and create the path. So I think it's also the fact that we now are thinking more behind the scenes than only in front of the camera. And that's why we're seeing more representation now, because we have those key elements that are looking to bring our essence from a different filter. Because at the end of the day, Hispanics were not monolithic. Look at you, Rita, light skin. Look at me, Mayan, dark. My kids are darker. My father is, half Carifuna, which is the African roots. My mom's half Mayan and Spaniard. So we are so mixed.
We're diverse. We're like all colors and flavors and shapes and sizes.
Yes. It's one of the groups that it's definitely not monolithic. So we do have a bigger chance to make a bigger impact, definitely. And I think we have to continue pressing and continue working. But I'm of the mentality of I'm not going to be complaining because I'm not going to get anything. I'm going to be working, opening the path. If it doesn't happen for me, it's going to happen for the one that comes behind me. So I think that's what we have to focus and work towards where we want to see our groups, our communities on these screens. And I think we have a lot of people doing that in Hollywood. When it comes to news, it's different if you talk about Spanish news, English news, the mainstream, and Hispanic news. Hispanic news, there's another different little word that happened in the 80s and the 90s. Okay, if you are, for example, in Florida, the majority of people were Cuban. So if you had a Mexican accent, you were not going to be on air. You know that. It was mainly Cuban. If you're in New Orleans, it's mainly Hondurans. You have to have the Honduran understanding. If you're in DC, it's mainly Salvadorian. So if you're not Salvadorian, you're not going to connect. LA, mainly Mexican. So with that, as a reality, in my case, I had to work on me, work on my accent, because I was not going to change the community that I was serving. The community is Mexican in LA. So what do you have to change? My accent. So when I'm on air, I have a neutral accent. And many people don't know that I'm not from Mexico. I'm from Honduras. And it's because I worked really hard. And it's not because I understood that principle since the beginning. It was a professor that made me understand the importance of taking those steps after actually I got fired because of my accent in 1989, 1990 when I was on the radio. And straight up, they called me and told me, oh, mija, ¿de qué parte de México eres? I'm like, no, usted, yo no soy de México, pues, soy de Honduras. Oh, he's like, oh, yeah. I was looking for someone from Michoacan or someone from, from that area. So they let me go. And then I had two options: cry and just imagine, think what it could have been done, or, take action. It sounds easy. It took me a long time to make the decision. It took me a few months. I was totally down. I was too young to understand that it got nothing to do with me. In that moment, I took it like a discriminatory action, but it had nothing to do with me. It's a community that you're serving. So if we think of demographics, what's the demographic? How many of us are here? That's what we need to fight to have the proper representation.
Now, what about you and your charge as the president of NHJ? You're in touch with all the major networks. What do you see, or the, let's say, general market networks, ABC, NBC, sister network of Telemundo Noticias? do you see that representation of Latinos on screen and even behind the scenes? Uh, does that need to, what needs to be done to have more representation? Or maybe are you seeing it? Do you see an evolution?
Well, I see changes and shifting. The news media and the mainstream or the general market, it's very vulnerable right now, like in any other industry. We've been in a period of 2 years of downsizing. A lot of our jobs are going to digital. So there's a lot of shifting because they're opening the spaces for the next generations, for the Gen Zs. There's not much spaces right now for the Gen Zs. And if you think of it as a business mentality, that's what they're doing. That's why we're seeing all this shifting. But when it comes to Hispanics, I think for my taste, we need more representation at the leadership position, those people that make the decisions. That's where we need more representation, because if we think of it on air, nationwide, we are what, 18%, right? 19%, around there. So we have, for example, in NBC, Ton Llamas as the main guy now, and we have different representation in CBS and ABC, in different stations, even different local Fox stations. They have a lot of Hispanics on camera. My biggest concern and our biggest push with NSJ right now is more Latinos in leadership, in news leadership positions. Because if you have more Latinos making decisions, they're going to understand the need of that community. They're the ones that are going to be and say, okay, in this market, I need another Hispanic, or in this other market, I need, I don't know, another Latino or Latina, or whatever the case may be.
You as a successful news personality, what are the tips that you probably share to up and coming reporters, storytellers, for them to succeed? What have been those top 3 or 5 elements that have helped you succeed and also overcome adversities in your career and overcome so many things? If you want to share.
I don't know. And when it comes to journalism and styles, everybody have their own style. The new students, I always tell them, turn the TV on, look for 3 that you like, fuse those 3 styles, and that's going to help you develop your style. When it comes to dealing with the industry, nothing is personal. And I make a big emphasis on that. Nothing is personal. If I'm the one sitting in that spot right now and something negative happened, the way I take it is, if it wasn't me, if it was somebody else, it would have happened the same thing. So it's not against me. It's not personal. Thinking that the world evolves around us, it's destructive. And when we're young, we think everything it's about us. So if some new journalists come in, and out of all the 5 little tips I can give, one that I make emphasis is that one. Nothing is personal. And always make yourself noticeable in the room. Make sure they know that you're there. What do I mean by that? Don't be the loudest one. And don't be the one that it's like always trying to sell yourself. But noticeable in the aspect that if you're not there, they notice, oh my God, Dunia is not here today. Why? Because if an editor is missing, I know how to edit. If someone from the audio booth is not there, I know how to do that. If a colleague needs help, I go and help. So when you're not there, they notice you're not there. So being a community member of that station in the whole sense of the word, not only being part of it, but getting your sleeves up and your hands dirty and do the work. So make yourself noticeable. Nothing's personal. Try to fuse 3 styles to be, create your own style if you don't have it. Number 4 will be like, just, have fun. If you're not having fun, even on the tough days, just move industries. This is not for you, because they don't pay us what people think they pay us. So you're here because you love it, because you're passionate. When you lose the passion, just move on, because you're going to be miserable. And it doesn't make any sense to be miserable and not make money,
Mm-hmm.
And the last one that I'll say, keep your feet on the ground with your eyes from the sky. Because if your eyes are only up there and your feet are not grounded, you're lost case. You don't know where you're going and you lose the essence where you come from. That's why when I have to talk to students, I always tell them my background, because for me, it's important for me and for people to know not everybody that are in this industry had it easy. So if someone can see, oh, she went through this, I'm going through this. If she made it, I can make it.
Now, what is next for you? I know that you're the main anchor, of Telemundo Noticias in Los Angeles. And what else do you envision for your future in as a storyteller, and also in your charge of NAHJ? Anything that you would like to probably share as a sneak peek for this year's convention in Chicago? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in Chicago. We're going to have 100 sessions. 20% of them approximately are in Spanish. And we have a lot of new words, per se, like AI. We need to learn how to use AI in a very responsible way, and also be very knowledgeable to understand what's information, misinformation, and lack of information. Because with AI, you don't know what's in reality happening if you're not savvy with the technology. So we're going to have AI, we're going to have leadership. Like I said, leadership is a big deal for us now. So we're going to have a couple of sessions on that. Immigration, because we are in an era that we are having a big shift in the country, after the caravans, the previous administration, this administration. When you go from one end to the other, there's a lot of adjustments. And you don't see those adjustments when you go from one party to the same party. So usually the biggest work and news is when you go from one party to the other party, which is, that's the beauty of America, balancing everything out. So we're going to have a lot of that stuff in the session. We're going to have services for students. So if you're watching this and you're not a member, register. There's a lot of free sessions online if you cannot go to Chicago. As we're speaking today, there's one about preventing from being hacked in your social media, because that's something that we see a lot of journalists are suffering too. So the focus right now is, like I said, leadership and news, to help having more Latinos in news for NSJ. At a personal level, I
Yeah.
don't know. I love being an
What is your
anchor.
your next big dream, or what is it, or your objective?
I
Where do
love
you
being
see
an
yourself?
anchor. I worked in the network for 8 years, so I did a lot of traveling when I was a correspondent in Latin America, and I think that's where I grew the most. Because one day I was in Mexico, another day I was in El Salvador, Guatemala, and coast to coast, and doing different things, meeting a lot of people, seeing a lot of disasters, natural disasters. So that helped me grow as a person. I'm enjoying being an anchor. I mean, I'm a little bit afraid of the crossover, because we always have these insecurities in our head and with the accent and everything. But I think America is ready for people like me now. So probably will be that, the
Yeah.
crossover.
Hey, well, I am so happy that I got to talk to you, and I wish you continued success in every endeavor, for NHJ. And I'm happy that you shared all the advancements that you're preparing, and the best of luck in your career. O sea, que sigas
Thank
creciendo,
you.
que sigas creciendo. Thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you.
a nice conversation for Perfiles by Don Page. Okay, stay tuned.